Certainly. First of all, I am a retired civil servant, and actually I'm retired from the city of Tucson. I worked here for 20 years, and then I retired to the city of Phoenix, and there in the city of Phoenix I continued my career as a consultant. So I was a consultant for several years, but during my retirement, that's when I started really putting effort into my book, A Tapestry Woven, From the Past into the Future. So again, that's when in earnest I continued working and then completing my book. Well, I've only written the one, but I can tell you that I've already started my second, and this is Threads of Time. So it's kind of a continuation, if you will, of the first one. So I've already got that one in place that I'm starting, and then I've already considered a third one as well. And I'm going to say this, I wouldn't call it fun, I would call it interesting. And the reason I say interesting is because of the research that I did. I needed to do research from the time period of the late 1800s to the early 1900s, because that time period was pivotal to the book itself, and the connection with the family that I wrote about, and the connection with the family, and then where I came in to the book. So that was the interesting part, rather than what I would say the fun part. It was all interesting, and putting the connections together. The inspiration came from my great-grandmother. She was the one that the story evolved because of where she came from, who she was. She was a Spaniard living in Mexico during this time period that I was talking about, the late 1800s to the early 1900s. So it was her history. She grew up as an abandoned child after her parents had been killed. Now, if you remember your history, it was a tumultuous time in Mexico. Growing up as a Spaniard in Mexico, they were abandoned. The children were actually grew up in poverty. And it was her story because of the suffering that they went through, living in poverty, and then the losses that she suffered throughout her life. And I'm talking about children, the losses of her children, the traveling from Mexico all the way through to Texas to New Mexico, and the hardships. But with all of that, it was her unfaltering faith and love of family. All of those things were intriguing to me. So it was her story that intrigued me and inspired me to write, because I wanted that to be a legacy for me, for my children, for my grandchildren, and the generations to come. Yes, there is the one particular one is Mariana. Mariana is basically me, and the other people that are in there, the family members, were all actually my family members. And then the other characters were my friends, and I did get their permission. Now that was very interesting. I didn't come up with the title of the book until after the manuscript was done. And the reason for that was because I had it on my computer as the untitled story. I kept looking back on the beginnings, and everything in my family in growing up was all around sewing this, threading this, and it was all around quilting this, putting together this. Always, everything was putting together, like making mattresses, sewing blankets for babies, and it was always combining things and sewing things together. So it was, again, if you can imagine making your own mattresses, quilting, patchwork this, patchwork that, and then it was then giving it to the family members, and then as the family members had children, that was passed on to the children, then to the grandchildren. So I kept thinking, the thing that was there was like almost a tapestry that was woven within each family member, with each generation. So that was a generational thing. So to me, then the words came like, it's a tapestry that was woven into the family, and it was a generational thing to pass from the past into the future. That's how I came up with the title. Oh yes. We would get along because we are symbiotic people, you know, so I know her. I know her intimately, you know, and I finally got to understand her. I will say I am in between, and the reason I say that I am in between is because I needed to have the plot of the story first. What am I going to write about? And then I didn't want to then do it like a book report where everything is segmented. I wanted to have the creativity because there's a lot in the book that cannot, you know, because I didn't have all of the information. I had bits and pieces of the story, so I had to be flexible with the story. So I would say I'm in between. I think they're called plantsters, so I would say I'm more flexible. Well, for me, it is one of two things. Either a very, very quiet space, or depending on, and reading the book, I think I would either need the music of the New Age music, if you're familiar with New Age music, like Yanni, instrumental, that I don't have to hear words. So quiet or music by Yanni, that's what I would need. It would be difficult, but right now there's two that I would consider. Two characters in there. One of them is immensely interesting, and that would be my uncle. And he was the one that was my pseudo-father. He was a Bataan Death March survivor, and he was like my father, even though he was my uncle. He actually had two sides of him, but we growing up, the family, never knew the side of the prisoner of war. We always knew the quiet, simple, hardworking, loving man. The other side only came out about 3 years before he passed away, because he never talked about about his time as a prisoner of war until about 3 years before. That side came out because I think he felt that us kids were already ready and to know the atrocities of war that he went through, because he didn't want to bring that horror into the family. But he finally felt that we could understand or take the words that he was speaking of. I think he would be a very interesting man to write about. And the other would be my Aunt Jenny. She was a humble, sweet, loving, almost saint-like woman. She had a side of her that is unknown, and I've never seen anybody like her. And like I said, she was almost like a saint. One was a big sigh of relief, and then bring on the champagne. Distractions, and it was, and really, I mean, anybody will have distractions. I mean, look at what's going on now, and it happens. You have life, you have, people calling you, you have people knocking on the door, you have, oh my God, this or that. It's just distractions. I wouldn't say how I see myself, but what I would say is that it's an accomplishment. It's something that I have been working on for a long, long time. And it's a big accomplishment that I did complete what I started out a long time ago to accomplish. The publishing is like having the icing on the proverbial cake. That's how I see it. Therapeutic. No. I would say that I'm considerate to my friends and family, so considerate. And the other one would be I'm devoted to my family, and in some cases also to my friends. And the third is I'm grateful. I'm grateful for my humble beginnings, and I'm grateful for where I am in life today. I would say that, and I remember one particular person saying, just dedicate so many hours a day for writing. And the other one would say, just be specific on your writing and don't get distracted. But all of those are, easier said than done. So, I mean, that's the advice that I got. Well, I would say the same thing, again, dedication to your writing, but again, it's the same thing. It's still hard to do. The other thing that I was thinking about is when you have written a manuscript and you take it to the editor, sometimes they want to put in their own message or say, oh no, don't do this, don't do that. Keep true to what you want to write. Even though they may say it doesn't sound right, it doesn't do this or that. Keep to what you want to say, you want to do. Other than, the right P's and Q's, if you will. I would say know what you want to write about and know the audience. Because the last thing you want to do is start out with a child's book and then come out and put something in it that wouldn't be appropriate. So again, know the story, know the audience, do research if you need to do research, and then start writing. And spend the time and find your quiet space. Well, I would say go to Amazon. They've got my book, they've got Kindle, and also in the next couple of months, I'm going to have an audiobook. And so look there on the Amazon and look for that. And my website is pmorales669@gmail.com. So look for me on Amazon and also the Barnes & Noble. I just want to say everyone has a story, and every person's story is different. So find whatever your story is and start working on it, because it does have value. And just write.